Are you guys ready? Good afternoon. Call the Committee of the Whole to order. Adoption agenda with one change. The first delegation regarding the Housing Task Force has been withdrawn, so we'll just be dealing with the two delegations. So with that, a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move. Second.
Favor? Motion's carried. I'd like to welcome Heather Nave from the Comox Valley Transition Society regarding Peace Begins at Home Purple Ribbon campaign. So
here.
over to the podium, that'd be great. Welcome.
Awkward. So I've been making the rounds, and so a couple of you have heard this before, but I made some minor change today. So I'm going to challenge you to pick up on one.
So there's a test.
And I do, I don't feel like my coming here and speaking to you is very valuable unless you ask me questions afterwards. So please do so. I'm hesitant to present to the regional district anymore because they never ask me questions. Okay. So thank you for having me, and I'm here today, like you said, to talk about the Peace Begins at Home Purple Ribbon campaign. So 4 years ago, former Courtney Mayor Greg Phelps was determined to shine a light on a subject that is uncomfortable to speak about, family violence. And so the goal of the campaign, as always, is to bring the issue of family violence out into the open and bring the community together in a collective commitment to end family violence. Peace Begins at Home is an idea that many of us hold dear, but for many women, children, and families in our community, it just isn't the case. Home is not a place of safety and sanctuary. Home, for some, is a place where family members or intimate partners use violence and coercion to maintain power and control. In 2010, the local RCMP detachment handled nearly 600 domestic violence cases, 123 of which led to criminal charges. In 2013, after changing the way the stats were compiled, the local detachment handled 929 domestic violence cases. 146 were assaults, 494 were other domestic conflicts, and 289 were other domestic offenses, including breaches of no-contact orders. 188 of the cases led to charges. We know that only 8% of victims of sexual assault and 30% of victims of domestic violence even report to police. So what's actually reported is quite different from what is actually going on. The most recent Canadian stats reports that 81% of marital violence victims are women, and among adult victims of sexual assault reported to police, 92% are women. Of the 144 cases last year that were handled, sent to community-based victim services, 14% of the victims were male and 86% were female. As one male counselor recently put it to us, yes, there are male victims of intimate partner violence, but the violence men use is far more lethal. In 2009, in a general social survey, women who reported marital violence were 3 times more likely than men to be sexually assaulted, beaten, choked, or threatened with a knife or gun. More than twice as likely to be physically injured, 6 times more likely to receive medical attention, and 5 times more likely to be hospitalized, and 3 times more likely to take time off from work as a consequence of the violence. Women are 3 times more likely than men to be killed by intimate partners, and 41% of the women who did kill their partners were acting to defend themselves against a violent partner. Other research has confirmed that violence perpetrated by men against women is far more likely to involve a pattern of physical violence and intimidation, emotional abuse, coercion, and control, and often escalates and continues after a woman leaves. Having said all that, the good news is that most men do not use violence, and men are often our allies in the worldwide campaign to end family violence and intimate partner violence. In the Comox Valley, many women, with or without children, are forced to stay in abusive situations due to the lack of safe, affordable housing. Women need a safe and secure place to live after fleeing violence. The most dangerous time for a woman experiencing violence in the home is when she either attempts or actually leaves. At Lily House, we keep them safe for a short period of time, but then where? either back to the situation they just recently had the courage to leave, or accept unsafe, inadequate, and unaffordable housing. This past year, CBTS has put more women in hotel rooms because Lily House was full, frequently full, due to women being unable to find safe, adequate housing. Going back is not okay. Violence has serious effects on women's health, on society, and on future generations. Violence has serious consequences for women's physical and emotional health, financial security, and impacts their ability to provide a safe, secure environment for themselves and their children. Violence can also have fatal consequences. For some women, violence results in death, either murder or suicide. Psychological and emotional impacts of intimate partner violence on women include depression, stress, anxiety, sleeping difficulties, feelings of shame, and fear for themselves and children. A study of the Department of Justice estimates the economic impact of marital violence against women in Canada in 1 year is $4.8 billion. Victims shoulder the largest share of the cost, then third parties such as ourselves, shelters, counseling, and losses to employers due to absenteeism related to violence in the home. And then finally the cost on the policing and criminal justice systems. Violence in the family affects future generations. 59% of women with children who have experienced violence reported their children had witnessed the violence. Witnessing violence as a child can cause lifelong emotional and psychological damage and can contribute to the likelihood that male children will perpetrate violence and female children will be victimized by partners once they are adults. Violence in the home is the leading reason for homelessness amongst women and women with children. Often at the point of leaving a violent home, a woman is homeless, and sometimes that never changes. These are the reasons why it's essential that women have a safe, affordable, and adequate housing to go to when fleeing from a violence in their homes. Housing is the foundation from which they can rebuild their lives and health and that of their children. The Comox Valley needs supportive second stage housing for women and women with children. Championing, and supporting the initiatives underway to make second stage housing for single and women-led lone parent families a reality is one way you as a council and as individuals can help some of the women and their children in our community who are suffering from the impacts of violence heal and find peace at home. I also want to bring to your attention that this year during the Peace Begins at Home campaign, our long-time desire to host Dr. Jackson Katz, North America's leading gender violence educator, has come to fruition. Through a partnership with the Justice Center, Family Services, and Volunteer Comox Valley, CBT and ourselves, Dr. Katz will be in the Comox Valley April 10th and 11th. Dr. Katz is an educator, author, filmmaker, and social theorist who has long been recognized as one of America's leading anti-sexist male activists. He's a key architect in the bystander approach to gender violence prevention and a founder and director of Mentors in Violence Prevention Strategy, an organization that provides gender violence prevention training and materials to universities, high schools, law enforcement, the military, community organizations, and large corporations. So on April 10th, Mr. Katz will do a public presentation at Mark Isfeld at 7 p.m. And on April 11th, he will speak at Breakfast with the Guys, Men's Leadership in Preventing Violence, a special session for community leaders, police, sports, coaches, firefighters, politicians, ministers, teachers, business leaders, and talk about the important role each play in leading men, boys, and young men to a healthy understanding of male adult roles. Both presentations will address the importance of collaboration with women and the powerful role that bystanders play. We are also having Dr. Katz speak to the students at Mark Isfeld that afternoon, and he's presenting to the military as well before he leaves. A second way you can support and contribute to the Peace Begins at Home campaign is to attend yourself and bring 5 friends or colleagues to a presentation and learn about the leadership role you have in addressing family violence and the importance of being more than a bystander. So finally, over the years, we often hear frustration from people that there are no programs for men who would like to voluntarily address their inappropriate and damaging use of power and control. Often these frustrations come from women who are victims of family violence, who desire that their abusive partners would stop and their family life would be peaceful and healthy, that their families would remain intact and their children would have a have respectful attitudes and behaviors modeled. Currently, the only help is if a perpetrator is convicted of domestic violence and thus mandated to participate in the Ministry of Justice's Respectful Relationship Program. But by this time, much of the damage is done. Some assaultive men, and often with encouragement from their partners, would like to examine their abusive attitudes and behaviors before too much damage is done. So we're currently working on a voluntary program for men who wish to develop respectful relationship attitudes and behaviors, and hope to have it up and running in the next couple of months. And in doing so, assist a few more families in getting peace. So I want to point out that, of course, this voluntary program and many of the programs that we have do not receive funding from government or foundations. So every time you drop off a donation at Too Good to Be True or shop there, you are supporting these local programs for women, children, and their families, and in the near future for men who want to change the way they are in relationships. So I encourage you to show your support and commitment as a council and as individuals to ending family violence by wearing the purple ribbon between April 6th and 19th, and by participating in the Jackson Cats event this year. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Heather. Any questions, comments? Yes? Councillor Price?
Somebody better get How about them connects, eh?
Councillor Price, on question.
Well, firstly, unfortunately, those dates don't work for me and maybe others, because that's the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Convention. Some people don't leave till the Friday, and big household that and the acronym is probably even more. But I will have to leave on the Thursday as many do. So if you don't see us there, it's not through lack of wishing to see you there.
I'm going to check everybody's travel arrangements.
Yeah,
Before you go.
So, and I think, one of the positives, I think we've moved from the situation when the police wouldn't intervene when a domestic quarrel was considered to be a family business and we don't interfere. So that turnaround is something to be welcomed. When the police do come, do they have the ability to take women and children from an abusive setting? Is that generally what happens? Because I don't see how you can calm the situation and then just leave and cope.
Yes, certainly they do, and sometimes they bring them to Lily House. If that's the woman's choice, or they would take them to a relative or family, friends, or definitely that happens.
So that support. So, but if they get to Lily House and there's no room, then that's when it becomes more of a problem.
That's right, and that's when we put people up in hotel rooms, or in an emergency situation, there's couches and there's rollaways and all of those things, and double up in bedrooms and whatnot. So we would deal with a situation in an emergency like that. So once it's calmed down and there's hotel rooms, then we use Ann Elmore House up in Campbell River or Powell River. People will go out of town to find their shelter.
And is there
And for 30 days.
okay, so
Yeah.
is there a length to stay and then
The contract says 30 days, but nobody ever really checks.
unless there's a safe place to go.
That's right. So we had a family, a woman with 4 children in there for 6 months in the Lake House this past year. So we're very and sometimes people stay a lot less time than we do because many of them don't want to leave. We actually love this I think anyways.
TMI.
But, yeah, so, but we've had as many as 18 people in there this year. And in addition to those 6 bedrooms and 11 beds funded through BC Housing for the short-term shelter, we have 3 addictions beds at Lily House, so there are actually 9 bedrooms. So sometimes if one of those addictions beds isn't being used, you know, and there's a transition house person in those bedrooms.
Okay, anything further? Thank you for your presentation.
Okay.
All right, next delegation is Cynthia Finn regarding the Comox Valley Food Roundtable. Welcome, and I guess you have a PowerPoint all set up there.
Yes. All right.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me here today. My name is Cynthia Fitton. I am the Executive Director at Lush Valley Food Action Society, and I act as an administrator for the Comox Valley Food Roundtable. I have about 10 years of experience working with food security nonprofits, and I also work as a registered nurse, just to give you a bit of a background about me. And I'm pursuing a master's right now in community development, so I'm all about collaborating and partnerships. So you might hear that a lot during my presentation today. I came about a year ago now, actually, last March, to ask for the town of Comox to participate in the Comox Valley Food Roundtable. And I'm here today to update you on our activities in the past year and highlighting some activities that are happening in other communities to let you know what kind of things that other councils and community groups are doing, and then also requesting support for participation by the town of Comox in a food strategy planning process that we are proposing. Sorry, I'm jumbling over my words, but we're putting in a grant proposal to Plan H for the Healthy Communities Capacity Building Grant with the City of Whitney, and we're looking for support from all of the local governments. I did it right. So we've had a busy year. In March of 2013, we formed the round table, and we have over 20 representatives on the table. We have representation from almost all of the local governments, lots of different nonprofits like the World Community and Seed Savers, the Farmers Market, and other smaller nonprofits and private businesses, farmers, food processors. We have been conducting a community food assessment over the past year, and this has been taking in the form of doing surveys, doing background research into what services and resources we have. We secured funding through the Real Estate Foundation to do research on barriers to land access. And we held the World Food Week, which some of you attended. We had I guess an educational workshop for local government officials and staff members with a gentleman named Peter Ladner, who is a former Vancouver City Councillor who wrote a book on urban agriculture and how to integrate it into community planning. We also hosted the Food Connections Conference. This is an island health conference that's put on every year in a different community to highlight food security work that's happening on the island and promote partnership and networking. And we have sent one of our members from the Comox Valley Food Roundtable to the United Way Public Policy Planning workshops that are taking place in Richmond. Arzina Hamir is doing that for her, and she is looking at ways to implement a food charter for our region. And also at how to establish a food policy council. Something that is happening right now is a film festival of food that's going to be put on at Lake Trails, again to raise awareness about food security issues, similar to World Food Week, but just a one-day thing to show films and do demonstrations of different food-related skills that you can develop. And that's going to be at Lake Trust, I think I said that already, on March 23rd. That's a Sunday from 10 until 2, I think. So it's open to the community. You're all invited. And also, we are supporting the proposed institutional food procurement project that is being developed between Island Health and NIC. Right now, they're going to be putting in a proposal to the McConnell Foundation. So we're in the process of writing a letter of support for that group. So yeah, we're very busy. I wanted to just outline some of the feedback that we've gotten from surveys that we had at World Food Week and at the Farmers Market. We were just asking the community what they think that we should be doing as a group, and what kind of issues they believe are most important in our community, and why we should be focusing on food in the community. And 95% of respondents to the survey felt that the Comox Valley should have a food policy council, and they supported the involvement of local government on food-related issues. This reflects the public's concern for the local food system, and the most important reasons for supporting local food production that respondents suggested were community building and community engagement, lowering the cost of healthy, fresh food, and creating and increasing employment opportunities in our region. On the other hand, key food issues that were identified in the community were access to affordable, healthy food, contamination from conventional farming, and that many small, medium-scale or market farmers were struggling financially. So basically, the surveys were telling us that the community is interested in addressing issues at a community level that are related to all of the problems that we're having in our food system. The numbers, I just give you an idea that there's more and more people going to the food bank every year, and there are more systematic ways that we can address these issues if we start working together. A lot of farmers, like I said, are struggling to make ends meet. A lot of smaller farmers are struggling to make ends meet, and there are different ways that we can collaborate to support them in their endeavors. So some examples of what other communities are doing. Nanaimo, during the 2013 Food Connections Conference, they actually came and presented to a group. Some of the Nanaimo City staff were there, and they discussed the success of their new municipal bylaws, which legalize production and sale of farmed produce on residential land. They have also adopted food security into their community planning and to encourage sustainable food systems and to ensure access to healthy food for all residents. And they're developing a food charter and a food system strategy presently. Campbell River, they also have integrated food into their community planning. Just a second. There it is. Alongside their agricultural plan. And one of the projects that they will be making public soon is their food map. I think maybe some of you might be aware of it, where they're going to be highlighting where you can source local food and what restaurants are selling local food. And they'll also have a land registry of arable or agricultural land gardening spots for people, like community gardens and available farmland. In Victoria, they have something similar to what has been developing here, a round table of food and agricultural initiatives. And they have various working groups that work on education policy and research initiatives. They do a lot of research. And they're housed underneath their social planning council as well. And then in Vancouver, they are a very good example of more long-term integration of food systems perspective into municipal policy making. They have a food policy council. They recently endorsed a food system strategy and adopted their food charter in 2007. So all of these examples, you can see food is becoming increasingly integrated into community planning. And the reason why I'm here today. The past year has been a lot about engaging the community and local government in understanding the purpose and importance of working together collaboratively on developing and implementing a regional food strategy. We've done that through our different events, reaching out by doing presentations like this, there are a lot of people who are on board presently. We have the Island Health, who provides financial support through Hush Valley Food Action Society, funding us as a food security hub to provide leadership and support through communication networks. This specifically supports our work with the Comox Valley Food Roundtable. We are right now looking at using the, I don't know if you know about it, the Silos to Systems workshop that's coming to town from BC Healthy Communities on April 9th. They will be putting on a workshop that will focus on learning how to partner and collaborate across sectors, from nonprofits to local governments to businesses, from food to housing to transportation, all of those different ways that you can think of sectors. And the Comox Valley Food Roundtable want to use that as a springboard to move into a food strategy planning process. So we'll be submitting this proposal to Plan H with the City of Courtenay. We have the Village of Cumberland, the City of Courtenay, and the Comox Valley Regional District supporting this proposal. And we're seeking a letter of support or just an indication that the town of Comox would also like to participate in the food strategy planning process. So,
Any questions?
thank you for listening to me ramble on.
Any questions for Cynthia?
Yes, so this application is going in pretty soon.
Yes,
so-
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, you want me to ramble more? It's actually due on Friday. You know, it isn't necessary to get a letter of support. And Nancy Hoffer at the City of Courtenay is helping me with the proposal, and she's just waiting for my email to say, yay, if that's a possibility. Yeah.
So it would be preferable if there was a letter of support coming that it would be soon.
Yes. Yeah. If you want to go the way of the letter of support, you know, today or tomorrow. Tomorrow would be really nice. Yeah.
CEO? Any direction?
I could outline what we're requesting, like
Sure.
the times and stuff. I just use Nancy's time as an example. She's an environmental planner there. She has been allocated about an hour a month of her time. Now that isn't necessary, but you know, a counselor's time could be allocated. It doesn't have to be staff time. But that's usually how long our meetings are. We meet once a month at the end of the month, and our meetings go from an hour to an hour and a half.
I understand Councillor Price has been attending in her own personal capacity. CEO?
Without discussing it with the department head for planning, we can commit to a minimum amount of support. I don't know if it's necessary for our staff to be at every meeting, but perhaps they can act as a sounding board or provide some information when necessary.
Yeah, an advisor would be wonderful. You know, it isn't necessary to attend every meeting. What I do usually is a week before I send an agenda out, and if there's anything of interest, then people show up.
I was surprised you didn't reference anywhere in your materials the regional sustainability strategy or the regional growth strategy, which
Sorry, yeah,
You
I have
have-
a lot to say.
do have significant components around food security, and of course, this council has adopted both of those strategies.
That's wonderful,
And our
yes.
community plan, I think, references to some extent issues around food security, certainly with respect to whatever agricultural lands in our communities.
So what we actually have been doing is using that as a basis for developing
Sure.
the food strategy, and it has been written into the proposal for the Plan H grant.
Anything further from council?
Just a quick clarification, the Food Policy Council that you were talking about, Peter, and elsewhere, what jurisdiction, if any, does it have, or is it strictly advisory in nature?
Well, the one in Vancouver it's connected to the local government. It is actually housed, I think, under the Social Planning Council there as well. And in Victoria, they're doing the same. They're looking at proposing it to be a part of the Social Planning Council. So it's, I think I've answered your question right, am I? It's like at arm's length from it. So right now, the Food Roundtable is it's a coalition. And it isn't necessarily something that we're looking at developing right away, but in the future, that's what we're moving towards.
Councilor Fletcher?
So, understanding there's a tight timeline, I've heard tomorrow. Is there an ability for a letter to be provided tomorrow to say the town is supportive of this project, or do you need a motion, or?
I don't think one's necessary. It sounds like you've got enough within our own community planning process, our OCP, to support that, and certainly a commitment from staff to assist as required.
Okay.
That should be sufficient.
Would it be okay if I could just get an email that I could forward to Nancy?
Yes, Shelley,
That's-
maybe Russ Room can give you the email address.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah.
All right, we do have an in-camera meeting, so a motion to adjourn to in-camera under the applicable provisions of the community charter. Section 9.
Second.
All in favor? Motion's carried. So wait till the room clears.